Good morning, everyone. We can do better than that. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Dr. Emily Murase, Director of the Department on the Status of Women. I'm so excited to be here today with the city's leadership to announce a new program to bring additional services to our survivors of domestic violence. And it's so great to see a room full of advocates and community folks here today. Just to set a context, about 15 years ago, we experienced about 10 domestic violence homicides a year. But then, through a strong collaboration between law enforcement and our community-based organizations, many of you sitting in the room today, we were able to eliminate domestic violence homicides to zero between the years of 2010 and 2014. Unfortunately, give it up for that. Unfortunately, in the last few years, we've seen it creeping up to about 3 or 4 per year. Now, the city's commitment to fund services for violence against women has been unwavering under our mayor. And in fact, he has doubled down on these investments. And so here to talk about our latest efforts to end domestic violence is our mayor, Ed Lee. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily, to you, to the Commission on the Status of Women, to our Domestic Violence Consortium, who has been working in deep partnership. By the way, without the consortium, I wouldn't be informed very well about what we need to do and do better at. They represent, and they are a host of community-based organizations that are critical to informing the city, the police department, the DA's office, all the social service agencies that we have as to how to prevent domestic violence, and particularly focused on the homicides. And today we're announcing the start of the use of a federal grant for the next 3 years that is to better inform all of our agencies. I want to thank Chief Scott for being here, for having Captain Vaswani open up this Bayview station for us, and to work with the special units captain, Captain Bailey, and everyone in the police department in collaboration with our district attorney's office and certainly with our community-based domestic violence preventers. This particular program has to do really with the lethality, if I can pronounce that, assessment, where in Maryland some time ago, they started a community-based program to identify better factors, evidence-based protocols that could identify what could possibly lead to homicide in the domestic violence. We have to do better because we're still seeing over 3,000 reports of domestic violence in our city every year. And if we don't watch how these factors come together, we will miss those opportunities to prevent the lethal consequences of domestic violence. And that's, of course, the worst. But it happens to every orientation, every gender, every ethnic origin, every person, whether they speak English or not. It can happen to any group of any economic strata. And this is why it's so pervasive and that we have to really have a focus on this. And I happen to believe that if we have a community-based effort working with groups like our consortium, like GLIDE, like our Casa de la Madres and other social service agencies in the community to really intercept and understand these factors as they evolve, we can then intercede at a point where it is well ahead of a very true fact, which is a lead to lethal consequences. And this is where we're adequately informed. We have a rich level of community-based organizations. And I mean it when we're just not doubling. I mean, it sounds nice to double the funding from 2.9 to 6.6 million, but I'm more interested in the interventions that help people's lives, the helping victims recover, helping families who are suffering from this. It's not just the one individual that's the victim, it's an entire family of people. Sometimes it's a neighborhood that knew or knows the people that are involved. whether it's helping them out of that crisis recover, whether sometimes it's hiding a member of the family so that she, in most circumstances, could have a chance to recover, whether it's educating all members of the family to act better and to find ways to resolve their differences in a much more civil way, whether it's the intervention of the district attorney's office or the police department on occasion that says, whoa, wait a minute, calm down, everybody realize where this is leading to. And to have those moments where somebody who is maybe an actor in this can pause and say, I don't want that consequence to happen. This is what we get to do in San Francisco when we have resources to really dedicate. But it's going to be those in the community that help inform all of our agencies how to do it right. It's going to be the YMCAs who are on the ground helping families successful, the Glide Foundation that's here today, Casa and all of the culturally competent language speaking, welcoming entities that allow the stories to be told in whole so that we could provide the right intervention. So I'm glad that everybody that is engaged in this is here today, because it's not a singular program. It's about the community and the police and the DA and all the agencies working at a high level of understanding so that we can see what factors will lead to the violence that we want to end. I think that this could be a model for violence in general, but let's begin with something that really hurts all of us, and that's domestic violence. And I want to make sure it's not the money. It really has to be the belief in the city that no one in this city should suffer from domestic violence, and especially if it is something that we see that over and over again can lead to homicide or to the lethal consequences. So I want to say thank you to everybody who's willing to work at a high level on this and willing to make sure we keep that number 0 in mind, that we don't want those homicides to happen. But it also begins with reducing that 3,000 reports into something that is 0. We know that might be impossible, but it's not. It's not impossible if we have the right presence in every aspect of this. So thank you, everyone, for working together. Thank you for taking up this pilot program. We'll add to all the other things that we're doing, not substitute it, but add to it to find the right way in which we can communicate this message. Domestic violence is not tolerable in San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I know that a number of folks in the audience, please stand if you work with survivors every day. They took time out of their very busy schedules to show their support for your leadership. Thanks so much. And now to tell us about a new tool in the fight against domestic violence is our Police Chief, Bill Scott. Please welcome Bill Scott.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And let me say first thank you to the mayor for the leadership and the vision. You know, I'm going to go a little bit off script here. There was a time in the law enforcement world where it was thought that domestic violence was not a preventable crime, particularly domestic violence-related deaths and homicides. And we have evolved so far from that time, thanks to the vision of those like Mayor Lee and Dr. Murase and people in this room that have come together to really address this in a holistic manner. And it is an evolution that, as a law enforcement professional, that I am very proud to be a part of. So I'll say this, that the infrastructure of this city is such that we do have a chance. Maybe it won't ever get to 0 like the mayor said, but we have a chance to get even better at what we're doing in terms of preventing these lethal incidents of domestic violence, and that's very exciting. So thanks again for joining us today. You know, police officers who respond to domestic violence incidents are uniquely situated to connect victims to services. And we are very excited to be piloting this program here in the Bayview. And I know the mayor said thanks to Catherine Vaswani, but let me just emphasize that the Bayview is an area that we feel that we can really, really make a difference in piloting this program. And Catherine Vaswani has been instrumental in leading this in. So as of tomorrow, when we kick this off, I'd like to thank you for your efforts in advance, because it's really been instrumental. So thank you. And also, while I'm thanking Commander Grant McEachern, who is in charge of investigations and works, oversees Captain Bailey's unit and the rest of the investigative function, also was instrumental in on our end making this happen. So this does not happen with the people that are actually at the ground level doing the work and the leadership that supports the work that's being done at the ground level. So I'll talk a little bit about what we will embark on starting tomorrow. Our new protocol at the Bayview Station includes an evidence-based lethality screening tool that you see beside me here. This tool is a simple questionnaire that helps the first responders to assess the severity of a domestic violence incident, as well as the patterns of behavior that indicates that a relationship might be a lethal one. We're hopeful that the use of the screening tool will reduce the number of intimate partner homicides. When we can successfully connect victims to community-based services, we can help keep them safer, and the protocol will help do that. We know from the research that the mayor mentioned in Maryland that in the year prior to an homicide occurring, police arrested more than 44% of the abusers, and almost 1/3 of those victims contacted the police, but only 4% of the victims accessed domestic violence services. The reassault of domestic violence victims causes a higher danger, and it reduces their chance actually to get out of the situation. So by taking advantage of the police response to these type of incidents in order to connect the victims with the services that they need, we believe we can help save lives and, more importantly, break that cycle of violence. Now, intervention is the key to this, and when a domestic violence victim, when an incident is occurring, we can stop that cycle of violence in the relationship as well as the integrational cycle of violence, because this not only impacts the victim that the violence is happened upon, but the whole family is affected. So we understand that, and when we connect that family with services as well as the victims, we have a better chance of not only stopping that immediate cycle of violence, but the future violence that oftentimes we see associated with children who grow up in these abusive households. So I want to thank all of our partners for being with us on this, and the police department is a part of it. The Department of Status of Women has provided a tremendous amount of leadership to get this off the ground. La Casa de las Madres, they're here with us as well and have a very good working relationship with the San Francisco PD. And then, of course, our Special Victims Unit, and Captain Una Bailey, who's really at the ground pushing this for the San Francisco Police Department. Ultimately, if we're successful with this pilot, what we hope to do is push this out citywide, and I do think we will be successful with all the help that's in the room and the people that we're partnering with. I think we'll be successful, so we hope to push this out citywide. So thank you again, and thank you to all the partners.
Thank you so much, Chief Scott. Working with your staff and the officers has been tremendous. So this is the first time as part of this federal grant that our department has partnered with the Bayview YMCA. I'm so pleased to introduce to you CEO and President of the YMCA of San Francisco, my friend, Chuck Collins.
Thank you, Emily. A year ago, Emily and I were traveling in Israel, and she disclosed to me the outline of this idea. Little did I know that we would be standing here today. About a year ago, one of my closest colleagues walked into the office, and she said that her closest girlfriend had been beat to death by her boyfriend. That left and leaves, as Chief Scott was saying, a radiation around an event that everyone is caught in that wave and never the same. Every month, I revisit this with my business associate as she goes through the prosecution of domestic violence. It puts a very sharp picture in my mind about what happened and what was that death about and what can we do about that. And so when Emily said something to me about this last year, it came as a great awakening to me that here in this community of the Bayview, where we have really worked to build the assets to serve this community, that we might have a part in ending this scourge on our community and on all communities. Our great hope is that we will get to those pre-2014 numbers, but it will never happen without the formidable cooperation of everyone in this room and everyone that we represent. You know, at the core of what the YMCA is about is strengthening families and strengthening communities, and understanding that each person's life and the history of their communities are relevant to where they are at any point in time. And so this is a remarkable laboratory, and thank you to all of those that brought this together so that we can use the Bayview community as an exemplar to the world about how to stop domestic violence. You know, as president and CEO of the YMCA, I have the great privilege of working, you know, in many different initiatives that we have. But at the core of the Y is the child. You know, the child is the proxy for the future. And if children are exposed to violence and trauma, we'll have a very different narrative that we'll inherit through the history of our children as they mature. So there can be no finer point that we put on the sanctity of childhood, that they should live in safe and supportive environments that are surrounded by responsible adults in communities where they can walk outside and walk inside with utter and total safety. That's when we know that we're going to have the community of the future that we want to inherit. You know, I get also a chance to work with a great executive director who is getting a brand new title in a matter of days, Casa Gardner. Casa is a product of this community. I think that there is, you know, no person who has actually inherited the history of this community more succinctly than Casa and her story. And working with Tammy Minix and the remarkable team that they have developed to support families, not only in this community, but in the surrounding community, you know, is what the Y is about. But again, how do we do this? How are we most effective in working with the systems of justice, the police department? You know, to have the honor of working with Casa de las Madres, with Kathy Black, to work with the Glide Foundation and Dr. Kim, to see this working together and that we are really cohabitating. Nobody's going to own this. We're going to do this well if we know how to really get along, be fair and honorable partners in serving what the goal of this all is. You know, the hosting of a high-risk teen center, you know, so that we can really disrupt these patterns as they begin to gestate, you know, in the turbulent time of transition for young people. You know, this is like a theory of change that is really steeped in public health and really looking at the evidence that it takes in order to drive towards these objectives. And so I see the outline of something that is really remarkable. But of course, you know, to stand in the presence of Mayor Lee and to see the leadership that he brings, the intelligence and the passion and his commitment to justice, this is just another example of great leadership. And I am proud to be a part of this community that will ameliorate this problem, that we will see no more domestic violence. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Another essential partner to this grant work is La Casa de las Madres, the first domestic violence shelter in the state. And here to say a few words is the executive director, Kathy Black.
So thank you, Mayor Lee, Dr. Marase, and the staff at the Department on the Status of Women. Chief Scott, nice to meet you today. Captain Vaswani for hosting us and being a great ally in this work. Captain Una Bailey, who thank you for all you do every day. The DA's office and Victim Services, Glide, the Y, and the Family Resource Center. We wouldn't be able to do this work without this really fantastic collaborative. So it's a pleasure standing side by side with everybody here today, and you can count on La Casa to be an outspoken and bold advocate against domestic violence. We have a proven track record of outstationing advocates in the community where they're needed the most. In addition to our emergency shelter and our drop-in counseling center, you can also find us at the Special Victims Unit at the Police Department at 850 Bryant Street, and we've been there since 2003. Zuckerberg General Hospital, the San Francisco Housing Authority, the Mary Elizabeth Inn, and select high school wellness centers. We've learned that if we go out in the community and serve and meet individuals where they are in the moment, we're much more likely to make a connection. And now we're here in the Bayview. So this is an exciting time for us. To this project, La Casa commits to providing expert interventions and support. You can be assured that we're going to carefully coordinate within La Casa and within the collaborative so that we're all working together towards the shared goal of preventing domestic violence and serious injury to victims and their children, and to increase access to support services and shelter. And the host of local domestic violence service providers with whom, if we didn't have them, La Casa wouldn't be able to do the kind of work that we're doing. And then finally, I really want to take a moment to recognize La Casa staff for coming along this kind of journey of outstationing, co-locating staff out in the community, and for their hard work. And some are here with me today: Tracy, Yasmin, Melissa, who have trained at night, done the training of the officers, and are willing to embark on a new adventure. And I'm really grateful for all your work. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Our final speaker is Dr. Kenneth Kim, Clinical Director of the Glide Foundation. Please welcome Dr. Kim.
Hello. Yeah, thank you to everyone who's participated in this. This was actually one of my first projects as Clinical Director at Glide, and I can't say enough what an amazing experience it is, especially because I'm fairly new to San Francisco, and it's great to see the culture and the initiative that's been taken here. So Glide is proud to be a partner in this pilot project in the Bayview neighborhood. We're also happy to be at the table to support communities of colors and victims of violence. Glide's ties to the community go back many years with Reverend Cecil Williams' partnership with Bayview community leaders in advocating for African Americans to have equal access to education, opportunity, and safety. Likewise, Janice Mirikatani's lifelong work has focused on the victims of domestic violence to heal from past traumas while empowering women to strive for health and stability in their lives. To this end, Glide founded the Women's Center in 2007 to provide a place of respite, healing, and community for marginalized and underserved women, including in particular African American women, who have experienced not only domestic violence, but chronic and complex trauma. Today, we continue to work alongside community organizations and city leaders in furthering these efforts. Glide is also very proud of our continuing partnership with the Department on the Status of Women and with law enforcement to support and serve those most at risk and vulnerable in San Francisco. Our commitment to the values of unconditional love and radical inclusivity is at the root of our efforts and guides our daily activities. Together, in partnership and collaboration, we have grown these values through integrating trauma-informed, evidence-based approaches towards the prevention and early intervention of high-risk domestic violence relationships. We'd like to thank city leaders for supporting Glide's past and present partnerships with city departments. In July, we look forward to joining San Francisco's Police Department, the District Attorney's Office, and the Department of Public Health, among others, in launching the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Project to improve public safety while replacing jail with treatment for those at the margins. And at the end of this project, we look forward to supporting the new screening protocol and improve the safety of domestic violence, or improve the delivery of domestic violence services to the Tenderloin neighborhood. Together, we are translating just, humane, and effective public policy into meaningful social transformation that benefits our communities, our city, and all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. So what happens next? Beginning tomorrow, officers of the Bayview Station will have a form and a phone. They'll go through the 11 questions, and if the lethality assessment is triggered, then an officer will provide contact with a live person from La Casa de las Madres offering resources and referrals. We hope that this will save lives as it has in Maryland and other jurisdictions. And then Bayview Y will be hosting a monthly high-risk team to identify those survivors who are at most risk of lethal danger. So we hope to be able to report back to you in a few months about the many successes. So I'd like to close out today's announcement with a few thank yous. We want to thank the District Attorney's Office, represented today by Gina Castro Rodriguez. Tara Anderson in that office helped us write this grant. Bayview YMCA, Merlene Murcia, Tammy Minix, and Takaija Gardner. La Casa de las Madres, Melissa Bergson has been doing a lot of work. DA's office, Liz Aguilar-Tarki, Jackie Ortiz, and Tonetta Thompson is here with us, who is funded through this grant. The police department, Captain Una Bailey, Lieutenant Ed Santos, Sergeant Tony Flores, the Bayview Station Captain Vaswani and his amazing team. And I really want to give a big shout out to members of my staff, Manoush Kendall, Women's Policy Director, and Elise Hansel, our grants associate. They conducted 8 trainings in this room, 130 Bayview officers at 12 noon and at 7 p.m., so they're very late nights. And so I want to really recognize their work today. So thank you all for coming, and I want to thank the mayor for his leadership on ending domestic violence here in San Francisco. Thank you very much.